It started subtly, a flicker at the edge of sleep. My name is Daniel, and for the past month, my nights have been stolen by a dream. It wasn't always the same dream, not at first. Sometimes it began in a sun-drenched field, the grass tickling my ankles. Other times, I was in a bustling city, the sounds of life echoing around me. But no matter where it started, it always ended in the same place, the room. The transition was jarring, a sudden snap from one reality to another. One moment, I'd be tasting salt on the sea breeze. The next, the air would be thick with the smell of dust and decay. The room was small, windowless, and the only feature was a heavy, dark wood door with no handle on my side. The walls were a sickly shade of beige, stained and peeling. The first few nights, I'd simply pace, my heart pounding against my ribs, convinced it was just a standard nightmare. I'd press my ear against the door, straining to hear anything, but there was only a profound, suffocating silence. Then I'd wake up, drenched in a cold sweat, the silence of my own bedroom feeling just as heavy. I tried to rationalize it, stress from work, maybe something I ate. I started keeping a dream journal, but the entries were depressingly similar. Field, city, forest, mountain, then the room. But after about a week, something changed. I noticed the first one when I was examining the walls, a desperate attempt to find a crack, a loose stone, anything. It was a single, thin scratch near the floor. It looked fresh. I didn't remember it from the night before. I dismissed it, thinking my mind was playing tricks on me, adding details to make the nightmare more potent. The next night, there were 3 scratches. The night after, a dozen clustered together like frantic tally marks. They began to spread, crawling up the walls like desperate ivy. My rationalizations started to crumble. This wasn't just a dream, it felt persistent. It felt like a place I was returning to. My waking hours became a haze of exhaustion and dread. I'd stare at my colleagues during meetings, wondering if they could see the fear in my eyes. I started avoiding sleep, chugging coffee until my hands trembled, but exhaustion always won. And every time I closed my eyes, I was back. The scratches multiplied with an unnerving speed. Soon, they weren't just lines, they were patterns, words almost. I traced them with my fingers, the plaster flaking under my touch. They felt real. They felt desperate. One night, the scratches formed a distinct shape, a face. A crude, screaming face etched into the wall, its mouth a gaping hole of despair. I recoiled, stumbling backward, and that's when I heard it for the first time. A sound. It wasn't from outside the door. It was in the room with me, a soft, dry whisper, like sandpaper on wood. It was so faint I thought I'd imagine it. I held my breath, my ears straining. There it was again, closer this time, a scraping sound. I scanned the room, my eyes wide with terror. The room was empty, just me and the scratched walls, but the sound was undeniable, and it wasn't coming from the walls. It was the sound of something shifting. Something dragging itself across the floor. Panic seized me. I threw myself against the door, pounding my fists against the unyielding wood until my knuckles were raw and bloody. "Let me out!" I screamed, my voice hoarse. "Please let me out." The only reply was that soft, scraping whisper, growing steadily louder, closer. It was circling me. I could feel a presence, a cold spot that moved through the stagnant air. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to wake up, chanting it like a mantra. "Wake up, wake up, wake up." And then, a voice. It wasn't a whisper this time. It was clear, raspy, and it spoke directly into my ear. "You can't wake up from what's real." I screamed and scrambled away, pressing myself into a corner, my eyes still shut tight. I refused to look. I couldn't bear to see what was in the room with me. The voice chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "I've been waiting," it said, "waiting for you to notice. I've been leaving you messages." The scratches, I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "That was you, of course," the voice rasped. "It gets so lonely in here." All this time, you don't remember, do you? I shook my head, my body trembling uncontrollably. Remember what? This room, the voice said, its tone laced with a chilling bitterness. You put me here. You locked the door and took my place. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? This is a dream. The presence was right in front of me now. I could feel its cold breath on my face. It hissed. For you, for me, it has been an eternity. But every time you came back, the barrier grew weaker. Every time you touched these walls, you gave me a piece of your reality. And now, I have enough. A cold, skeletal hand touched my cheek. My eyes flew open against my will. I wasn't looking at a monster. I was looking at myself. A version of myself, but emaciated, pale, with eyes that burned with a crazed, ancient hatred. Its lips, which were my lips, twisted into a triumphant grin. My turn, it whispered, and its face began to change. The gaunt features filled out, the pallor was replaced by the healthy color of my own skin. It was becoming me a perfect copy. As it solidified, I began to fade. My hands became translucent, the room bleeding through my form. I was becoming the ghost. No, I cried, reaching out, but my hand passed right through it. The figure, my doppelganger, stretched its new limbs, rolling its neck with a satisfying crack. It looked down at me, its expression one of pure, malicious glee. It walked to the door, and for the first time, I saw a small, rusted keyhole appear in the wood. It reached into its pocket, a pocket I knew was empty, and pulled out a key. Don't worry, it said, its voice now a perfect imitation of my own. I'll take good care of your life. It slid the key into the lock. A loud, grinding click echoed in the small space, the sound of a lock I had never been able to open. The door swung inward, revealing a blinding white light. It was the light of the waking world, my bedroom. It stepped through the doorway without a backward glance. The heavy door began to swing shut, plunging the room back into darkness. My last glimpse was of my own body, my own face, standing in my own bedroom, smiling. Then the door clicked shut, and the lock turned from the other side. I was alone. I screamed and threw myself against the door, but it was no use. I was a phantom, a whisper. My hands passed through the wood. I turned and looked at the walls, the thousands of scratches, the screaming face. They were all still there. I sank to the floor, the cold seeping into my very essence. And I began to scratch a single, desperate line in the plaster. Waiting for the next dreamer to arrive, waiting to tell them what was stolen from me, waiting for my turn to come again. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next descent into the darkness. See you next time.